30% से 50% तक एडिशनल ड्यूटी लगाने की बात कही गई थी। 10% की बेसलाइन ड्यूटी 5 अप्रैल 2025 से लागू हो गई है। भारत पर एडिशनल ड्यूटी 10% के बेसलाइन टैरिफ सहित कुल 26% की घोषणा की गई थी। मूल रूप से फुल कंट्री स्पेसिफिक एडिशनल टैरिफ 9 अप्रैल 2025 से प्रभावी होने वाला था, लेकिन इसे शुरू में 10 अप्रैल 2025 को 90 दिनों के लिए स्थगित कर दिया गया और बाद में 1 अगस्त 2025 तक और बढ़ा दिया गया। भारत और अमेरिका ने मार्च 2025 में एक न्यायपूर्ण, संतुलित और पारस्परिक रूप से लाभकारी द्विपक्षीय व्यापार समझौते BTA के लिए बातचीत शुरू की, जिसका लक्ष्य 2025 के फॉल यानी अक्टूबर-नवंबर 2025 तक समझौते के पहले चरण को पूरा करना था। दोनों पक्षों ने 29 मार्च 2025 को नई दिल्ली में आयोजित पहली फिजिकल मीटिंग की चर्चा के दौरान द्विपक्षीय व्यापार समझौते की बातचीत शुरू करने के लिए विस्तृत टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस TOR को अंतिम रूप दिया। इसके बाद दोनों पक्षों के बीच नई दिल्ली और वॉशिंगटन DC में 4 दौर में फिजिकल मीटिंग्स हुई हैं ताकि निर्धारित टर्म्स ऑफ रेफरेंस के अनुसार द्विपक्षीय व्यापार समझौते के अंतिम रूप के लिए काम किया जा सके। इसके अलावा दोनों पक्षों के बीच कई वर्चुअल बैठकें भी हुई हैं। सरकार हालिया घटनाक्रम से होने वाले प्रभावों का परीक्षण कर रही है। वाणिज्य एवं उद्योग मंत्रालय निर्यातकों और उद्योग सहित सभी हितधारकों से संवाद कर इस विषय पर उनके आकलन की जानकारी ले रहा है। सरकार हमारे किसानों, श्रमिकों, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, उद्यमी, निर्यातकों, सूक्ष्म, लघु और मध्यम उद्योगों और उद्योग जगत के सभी हितधारकों के कल्याण की रक्षा और संवर्धन को सर्वोच्च महत्व देती है। हम अपने राष्ट्रीय हितों को सुरक्षित करने और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सभी आवश्यक कदम उठाएंगे। मात्र 1 दशक से भी कम समय में भारत फ्रैजाइल 5 अर्थव्यवस्थाओं में से निकलकर दुनिया की सबसे तेजी से बढ़ती प्रमुख अर्थव्यवस्था बन गया है। हम अपने रिफॉर्म्स और अपने किसानों, MSME और उद्यमियों की कड़ी मेहनत के बल पर 11वीं सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था से शीर्ष 5 अर्थव्यवस्थाओं में से एक बन गए हैं। यह भी अपेक्षित है कि हम कुछ ही वर्षों में तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बन जाएंगे। आज अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संस्थाएं और अर्थशास्त्री भारत को वैश्विक अर्थव्यवस्था में एक ब्राइट स्पॉट के रूप में देखते हैं। भारत वैश्विक विकास में लगभग 16% का योगदान दे रहा है। पिछले दशक में सरकार ने भारत को विश्व की विनिर्माण केंद्र के रूप में बढ़ावा देने के लिए मेक इन इंडिया के अंतर्गत परिवर्तनकारी कदम उठाए हैं। भारत की युवक, कुशल एवं प्रतिभाशाली वर्कफोर्स भारतीय उद्योग की इनोवेशन और प्रतिस्पर्धा की क्षमता को निरंतर मजबूत कर रही है। पिछले 11 वर्षों के दौरान हमारे निर्यात में लगातार वृद्धि हुई है। तेजी से संरक्षणवादी होती दुनिया में भारत ने संयुक्त अरब अमीरात, यूएई, यूके, ऑस्ट्रेलिया और एफ्टा देशों के साथ पारस्परिक रूप से लाभकारी व्यापार समझौते किए हैं। हम अन्य देशों के साथ भी इसी तरह के व्यापार समझौते करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। हम किसानों और भारतीय कृषि के कल्याण के लिए निरंतर कार्य कर रहे हैं, जिससे खाद्य सुरक्षा और समृद्धि सुनिश्चित की जा सके। सरकार को विश्वास है कि हम विकसित भारत 2047 के लक्ष्य की ओर समावेशी और सतत विकास की अपनी तेज गति वाली यात्रा जारी रखेंगे। आत्मनिर्भरता की ओर भारत आत्मविश्वास के साथ बढ़ रहा है। धन्यवाद। सर, आपकी अनुमति हो। सर, मैं अंग्रेजी में भी पढ़ना चाहता हूँ।
ना, एक मिनट हो जाता। शून्यकाल बैठना चाहते हो, शून्यकाल करना चाहते हो, बैठिए। चला शून्यकाल। श्री वीके श्रीकंदन, चंद्र प्रकाश चौधरी, रामवीर सिंह विधुड़ी, श्रीमती कला।
Well, that was Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal speaking in Parliament. The first response coming in from the government. They did issue a statement yesterday, but this was the Commerce Minister addressing the issue of the tariff imposition announced by President Trump overnight, saying that India will take necessary steps to protect her interests, but also adding that 4 rounds of negotiations have taken place physically, several rounds virtually. Of course, not getting into details of what is expected from here on, only suggesting that the Commerce Ministry is in dialogue with exporters and with industry to understand the impact of the tariff imposition, and of course alluding to the fact that the Indian economy continues to be resilient. But that's the first reaction there from the Commerce Minister on the imposition of tariffs announced by President Trump. Let's talk about some of the other headlines that we are tracking this evening. President Trump ramps up the rhetoric hours after hitting India with a 25% tariff and a penalty for buying Russian oil, calls India a dead economy, says he does not care about what India does with Russia. The White House does not provide any details on the proposed penalty when asked by CNBC TV 18. Trump's new tariffs are likely to impact India's GDP by about 50 basis points, say brokerages. The new tariffs are likely to impact steel exports. Sources say the export of smartphones, laptops and tablets and pharma are exempt till at least the 14th of August. US is likely to hold a meeting to review the continuation of tariff exemptions. Hours after hitting India with tariffs, President Trump announces a deal with Pakistan to develop oil reserves, says Pakistan could be selling oil to may in fact end up selling oil to India someday. Trump also inks a deal with South Korea imposing a 15% tariff. A roller coaster ride on Dalal Street. The Sensex and the Nifty rebound sharply but then failed to hold on to their intraday gains and close with losses. 39 out of the 50 Nifty stocks close in the red. The Supreme Court admits a petition seeking a review of its own judgment ordering the liquidation of Bhushan Steel and scrapping the insolvency process. The court observes this is a fit case where the judgment needs to be recalled and the matter needs to be reconsidered afresh. Tata Motors to acquire Italian commercial vehicle maker IvecoGroup for 38,000 crore rupees, plans to launch Iveco's products in India and other markets. This is the second biggest acquisition by the Tata Group since steelmaker Chorus was bought for $13 billion in 2007. Maruti reports a steady first quarter, meeting muted expectations. Revenue up 8%. Other income boosts profits. Margins contract by over 200 basis points, but in line with estimates. HUL meets estimates in Q1 as it gears up for a CEO transition in August, with Priya Nair succeeding Rohit Java. Domestic volume grows by 4%. The management says it expects a gradual recovery to sustain. Microsoft beats estimates in Q4 with $77 billion in revenue. Annual revenue from cloud computing hits $75 billion. Meanwhile, Facebook parent Meta beats estimates thanks to strong advertising revenue. Mark Zuckerberg says superintelligence is now in sight. The Federal Reserve keeps key interest rates unchanged despite pressure from President Trump. Chairman Powell gives no hint on the future of rate cuts. Two governors dissent against the status quo decision for the first time in 3 decades. More people die of starvation in Gaza as the humanitarian crisis worsens. At least 30 people waiting food assistance are gunned down by Israeli forces. After France and UK, Canada says it could recognize a Palestinian state by September. President Trump warns that the move could derail the trade deal. A special court acquits all 7 accused, including former BJP MP Pragya Singh Thakur in the Malegaon Bomb Blast case. The court observes the prosecution failed to bring any cogent evidence to prove the culpability of the accused. 6 people were killed, nearly 100 injured, when an explosive strapped to a motorcycle exploded near a mosque in September of 2008. Well, the top story that we are tracking here this evening, President Donald Trump has ramped up the rhetoric hours after hitting India with a 25% tariff and a penalty for buying Russian oil and defense equipment. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump has said, and I quote, "I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care," end of quote. Now, these statements come a day after President Trump said that India has the most strenuous tariffs and the most obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers compared to any other country. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal telling the Lok Sabha just a short while ago that India will take all steps to protect its interests. Here's President Trump on imposing 25% tariffs and a penalty on India.
Well, we're negotiating right now, and it's also BRICS. You know, they have BRICS, which is basically a group of countries that are anti the United States, and India is a member of that, if you can believe it. And it's an attack on the dollar, and we're not going to let anybody attack the dollar. So it's partially BRICS, and it's partially the trade situation. It's the deficit. We had a tremendous deficit. So, as you know, Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff. But you'll know at the end of this week. August 1st is a very big day for this country because money is going to pour into the United States like we've never seen before.
Well, that is President Trump, and we reached out to the White House for clarification on President Trump's tariff announcement. Parikshit is standing by now. Parikshit, you've been in touch with officials in the White House. What exactly do they have to say about the tariff imposition, but more importantly about that penalty, because that's where the big question mark is?
That's right, Shireen. Lots of questions there for exporters and the Indian government. We reached out to the White House and yes, Donald Trump has imposed a 25% tariff on India with an additional penalty. So what does this mean? A White House official has said that reciprocal tariffs will come into effect from August 1. The tariffs currently in place have exemptions for goods such as semiconductors, copper, timber, energy, minerals and pharmaceuticals. These exemptions will continue, and so will the exemptions for steel, aluminium and autos that are subject to Section 232 tariffs, and they will continue for now. The final paper on tariffs, according to the White House, beyond the 1st of August has not been released so far. What we know and what is clear right now is only the top line tariff rate of 25%. No additional details on the penalty are available yet. However, Trump's announcement has certain major implications for India. The US is unlikely to accept any deal without concessions on agriculture and dairy. Number two, we'll have to remember that Russia-Ukraine talks will have to be followed closely. If the talks fail and there is no progress on ending the war, then there could be secondary tariffs on countries like India which buy Russian oil. Therefore, India is likely to be in a wait-and-watch mode rather than coming up with any immediate response or retaliatory measure. Thirdly, an additional penalty could be announced soon, and therefore there could be more action that exporters will have to be ready for. Number four, India will have to start looking at more bilateral trading partnerships. Trump's tariff will have a long-term impact as the next US president may want to continue with the same tariff rate. India will have to start focusing more on markets in the East and Africa over the next few years.
Well, all of that, of course, will be in play. Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. We are still awaiting the fine print from the White House on the tariff imposition and, more importantly, that penalty. The other big question that we're asking today, how will the Trump tariffs impact Indian industries? Sources tell us that the immediate impact will be cushioned by the exemptions that are in place till at least the 14th of August. Remember, the 14th of August was the exemption timeline provided when the Trump regime announced the tariffs in April. Ashmit is standing by now with more details. Ashmit, what are you picking up on things like smartphones, laptops, etc.? The exemptions that were announced previously likely to continue, at least for now?
Well, what we're given to understand is that there will be no immediate pain on account of the 25+% tariffs that Donald Trump had announced by way of his post on Truth Social. What sources are telling us is that at the time when these tariffs had been promulgated, had been announced by the United States, at that time, there was a separate order passed as well. There was a presidential memorandum which had provided for exemptions for multiple products such as smartphones, such as laptops, telecom equipment, such as servers. Since then, the exports that have been going from India to the United States have been claiming benefit of that presidential memorandum, have been claiming benefit of that exemption, paying zero duties at this stage. What we're given to understand is that this exemption was introduced with a 90-day limit. That 90-day period expires at the end of August 14th. That exemption period continues to be in effect, and therefore smartphones, which is essentially the poster boy of the Indian manufacturing story, continues to be safe as of right now. That's no immediate setback as of right now. But having said that, let's also point out, for the benefit of our viewers, that it is only interim in nature. There is an investigation underway in the United States. There will be a review meeting that will be held on or before the end of August 14th that will decide the fate of these exemptions. Should they be allowed to continue? Should they be scrapped altogether? That's a decision that is keenly awaited now from the United States, at least as far as the electronics industry is concerned, on the continuation of those exemptions, which continue to be in place as of right now, at least up until August 14th.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. Now, the US and India's trade equation is a crucial one. The US imported goods worth $87 billion from India in 2024 alone. So what do brokerages make of the tariff imposition announced by President Trump? Surbhi is standing by to explain. Surbhi.
Well, the India-US trade relationship is important and the numbers are large. The United States has been India's largest trading partner for the last 4 years. And the value that we derive out of all our exports to the US is almost $88 billion. So it is indeed a big deal. Now, the problem of the US running a constant deficit, the value of that trade deficit that the US is running, in our case, it's a trade surplus for us, is about $41 billion. And all of these are numbers as of last count, FY25. So if we talk about what the implications are then, I mean, clearly these are big numbers. That deficit is something that the US cites as a problem. Now, is it really a problem for us, the Indian economy? Thankfully, because we are a domestic-driven economy, there the numbers are not that big. Because if you're looking at US exports as a percentage of Indian GDP, then the number is about 2.1 to 2.2% of our GDP. So it's not that huge. But there will be a GDP impact. That's what most economists are saying. And I looked at a lot of estimates. Some of these estimates came in April when the first round of tariffs was announced, when we were at 26%. Today, we're at 25%. So if this 25% holds, then what are the views on the street? We are talking about estimates ranging between 30 basis points to 60 basis points of GDP impact. In fact, if I could just sum it up, SBI is saying that at 20% tariff, their original April estimate was the impact is going to be 50 basis points on GDP. They're saying every 1% rise in that tariff rate leads to a 0.5% decline in our exports to the US. Morgan Stanley sees the risk of about 40 to 60 basis points impact on GDP. Cities, again, is at about 30 to 40 basis points impact on GDP. And Nomura is saying that there will be a 2 percentage point impact. There's a downside risk to their FY26 GDP estimate, which is 6.2% growth for Indian GDP. So therefore, the absolute numbers are big, but in terms of as a percentage of India GDP, the impact is not extremely substantial. But the trade relationship, of course, is very, very important.
Yes, it certainly is. Surbi, many thanks. But let's talk about Dalal Street now. A very choppy session. Despite staging a massive intraday recovery, markets finally failing to hold on to their gains and closing in the red. In fact, 39 out of the 50 Nifty stocks closing in the red. The Sensex down 296 points, 86 lower on the Nifty. The mid-caps lost 541 and 188 points low on the Nifty Bank. But this doesn't tell you the story. The way that we saw the market stage that intraday recovery and then, of course, close in the red. Very, very volatile day today, of course, also expiry day. Meanwhile, the rupee closing at an all-time low of 87.60. However, the rupee's intraday fall was less than 0.5%. It's remained resilient despite the US tariff news that has come in. Now, hours after hitting India with tariffs, President Trump has announced a deal with Pakistan to develop its oil reserves. In a post on Truth Social, the president said, and I quote, "We have just concluded a deal with the country of Pakistan, whereby Pakistan and the US will work together on developing their massive oil reserves. We are in the process of choosing the oil company that will lead this partnership. Who knows, maybe they'll be selling oil to India someday," end of quote. Pakistan's finance ministry has said the deal will lead to a reduction of reciprocal tariffs on Pakistan's exports to the US. Well, a deal there being inked overnight between South Korea, the US and Pakistan as well. Time for a break, but coming up next, the Supreme Court admits a petition seeking a review of its own judgment ordering the liquidation of Bhushan Steel and scrapping the insolvency process. Significant relief for JSW Steel and its lenders. That and more coming up. The Supreme Court has admitted a petition seeking a review of its own judgment ordering the liquidation of Bhushan Steel and scrapping the insolvency process. The court observed that this is a fit case where the judgment needs to be recalled and the matter needs to be considered afresh. Ashmit is standing by with more. This is a big relief coming in for JSW Steel and the lenders and overall for the IBC process itself, Ashmit.
Indeed, a number of these concerns had been raised by the lenders themselves, by JSW Steel as well, that this is taking back the IBC process right to its inception. The clock has been set back, that there are numerous investments that have been made by JSW. All of that have not been considered. That on the mere issue of timelines and adherence to that timeline, on that mere issue, a resolution plan of nearly 20,000 crore rupees was scrapped. Now, all of these arguments appear to weigh on the minds of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court today, as a part of these proceedings, mentioned that prima facie it is of the view that there has been an incorrect application of law by the Supreme Court judgment which had scrapped the JSW Steel resolution plan, going on to say that this is a fit case for reconsideration. This is a fit case for hearing the review, and on that basis allowing for these review petitions, and now saying that next Thursday this matter will get taken up for further hearing. The Supreme Court had some strong words. The Supreme Court said that the powers that have been used by the court should only be used to do justice and not injustice. Also, in fact, putting across how 25,000 people will be brought on the roads if this company is sent into liquidation, and then going on to say that this is a case which is weighing on the minds of the judges, that they will want to consider right from scratch in terms of how this resolution plan is to proceed. So on that count, relief being granted, the review petitions being allowed, and on that count, the hearing, we understand, will begin next week from Thursday. Back to you.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. Relief there for JSW Steel and also for the entire IBC ecosystem. Tata Motors has announced that it will acquire Italian commercial vehicle maker IvecoGroup. The deal will be valued at 38,000 crore rupees, and the all-cash transaction is said to be Tata Motors' biggest acquisition to date. The deal is also expected to close by April of 2026. Replying to CNBC TV 18's question, the company's chief financial officer, PB Balaji, said Tata Motors may need to raise €1 billion for the acquisition. Take a look.
We have not yet made up our mind in terms of the magnitude of the equity raise. It obviously has to be discussed with the rating agencies as well. But we believe close to about €1 billion kind of a fundraise is what in the ballpark range will come on to. How much exactly it will be, let's work through the problem. And we are comfortable with respect to the metrics that we will land with that kind of a fundraise. And also, other thing is that monetization of Tata Capital stake, that also needs to be factored in. And together, that's more or less takes care of it.
Well, that's the management of Tata Motors on that big acquisition and how they intend to fund it. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment with more.